Hey, I'm your host, TheDoctorDanko, come on in. You've been missing out, so let's begin. Pumpkin_crumb is your host here too. When you hear the beat, you know what to do. Why didn't you warn me? Why didn't you warn me now? Why didn't you warn me? Why didn't you warn me? Hey.
Welcome to the podcast.
I think that's perfect.
That's
I think
how
we can
gonna
just
start.
go.
Okay.
Welcome to Why Did Not You Warn Me?
Oh,
Episode
did have a name,
41.
didn't it?
It was a legit podcast that I put a ton of work into. So yes, it had a name, has a pseudo website.
It has a rich backstory.
It gets new views every couple of days.
Yeah, I know. Facebook tells me.
Yeah.
I am also
You're
an
an
admin. For some reason. Clearly, I am not invested in the project.
I wanted you to have some sort of ownership over the podcast that we do together.
Pseudo ownership.
Yeah, by name only.
Right. I'm a figurehead.
You
I'm
are.
the Queen of England.
Exactly. And since we're a low-level operation, I run everything else. It's
Right.
fine.
You're the CFO? CE, which is the one that actually does something.
Do
None
do
of them.
any of them do anything?
Capitalism is the worst, kids.
Right.
That's where we're at in 2020. Cancel rich people. Although, to be
Exactly.
fair, we've been there for years. The
That's
hipsters
true.
of anti-capitalism.
You and me personally?
Yes.
Or just our generation?
Mostly our generation, but we've been fairly vocal about it.
Yeah, that's
Eat
true.
the rich.
Eat the rich. With quality cutlery.
I'm sorry, do we have your attention?
We do. I just wanted to know what the last episode we recorded was.
It was a long time ago.
It was February 12th.
This year?
It would have to be, because Crisis was what we covered last.
Oh, right. I was trying to remember, because I know we want to talk about the DCCW, because we always do.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if we had done an episode dedicated to Batwoman. I was pretty sure we had not talked about Supergirl, because we didn't finish Supergirl until after we watched Crisis.
Yeah, we did not... I don't think we talked about Batwoman.
Just like...
Other than her introduction
Right,
and
yeah, Elseworlds.
Crisis,
And,
yeah.
Well, because Elseworlds was
Right.
chef's kiss.
It really was. That was one of my favorite crossovers and probably episodes.
And we've
Like
talked
their
about this,
episode.
but I think that I liked Elseworlds almost more than I liked Crisis.
I get why you think that. No, I mean, like, it's way more enjoyable, like, in terms of what it's doing.
Yeah.
It feels very contained. Feels very like, okay, this makes sense why they're doing it on this episode of the crossover and this
Yeah.
episode and then that episode. Because I think it was a 3-parter.
I think so. Yeah, because the only one not invited was Legends.
Right. Well,
And
they were
Batwoman
gonna
wasn't a show yet.
exactly. They were gonna bring them in for Crisis.
Right. And even if we have already talked about this,
Whatever.
we haven't done this in a year. You've probably forgotten, you, the audience,
Yeah.
our piping hot takes on the DCCW, which nobody else watches. So
Yeah. So we're making a podcast for nobody about things that
About
people don't watch.
nothing. It's a nothing, dear.
It's a nothing, dear. It's like an Oreo, but it doesn't exist.
I'm not going to touch that one. There's no need to explain it. There's nothing to explain.
I think I've explained it pretty well.
Okay.
Anyway, what have you been reading? Let's
Wow.
jump back into our format, and then we can open it up for
For questions from our audience.
Batwoman. We don't take calls. This isn't live
Oh, do we
radio.
not? This isn't Dear Hank and John.
No.
Anyway.
They don't take calls. They take write-ins.
I didn't say calls. I
No.
said questions from our listeners.
Yeah, but
which
it
is
implies
what
that we have
Hank and John
active
say.
listeners.
You gotta stop talking over me.
What?
So I've been reading since February.
Yeah.
A lot, frankly. What have I read recently? I just finished a book called Boyfriend Material, which was as adorable and ridiculous as it sounds. So that was fun if you're looking for like just a light, fun, very gay novel. I also wanted to talk about An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green, which I just finished, and I just started the sequel again. I'm reading both of them again. But if you were at all intrigued by the appearing and disappearing monolith situation in Utah, strongly recommend Hank's books. They're just, something similar is the inciting incident for the first book. And then the second one just sort of like, well, both of them explore the ramifications of technology and social media and how we present ourselves on social media and how that becomes, like, even if you think you're sitting down and making a brand of yourself and like, it's just a character, it's not me, that's just how I'm presenting. That's how people see you, and to a degree it becomes who you are. Deeply interesting books, while at the same time having like just really fast moving plots. So yeah, An Absolutely Remarkable Thing and A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor, both by Hank Green. Strongly recommend. Do we want to do Raven Boys now?
Sure.
Okay.
We'll slip that in here.
Just slip it right in.
Yeah.
So I also read the young adult fantasy series, The Raven Cycle is what the series is called, by Maggie Stiefvater, I believe is how you say her last name. The books are Raven Boys, Dream Thieves, Blue Lily, Lily Blue, and The Raven King, with a spin-off series called the Dreamer Trilogy, of which only one is released, and that is Call Down the Hawk. Amazing. Amazing, just beautiful, lovely, magical young adult fantasy. And I like them so much that I forced Matt to let me read them to him.
I mean, not forced. You just love to share books with me, and because I don't read as frequently as you do, or the same types of things that you do, we decided you would read it to me.
Because I enjoy reading aloud, he enjoys being read to, so it's just...
I'm way more into audiobooks.
It's a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
Oh. So, Matt, do you have any thoughts and feelings about Raven Boys? Oh, wait. This section will likely contain spoilers for the Raven Cycle. Also, I read all of them multiple times. Together, we are about 3/4 of the way through the third book in the series, Blue Lily, Lily Blue. Go ahead, Matt.
Yes, so these books, the only thing I can equate them to, because again, I don't have as much reading experience, is Harry Potter. And the reason I say that is because it has a fantasy element to it, but the story revolves around, this group of children that call themselves... No? Who calls them that?
The Raven Boys?
Yeah.
Blue calls the boys who attend Aglionby Academy
as a whole.
Raven Boys.
Boys. But this is like her...
So Blue Sargent is the female young adult protagonist. One of them. One of the protagonists. She's the only female. Which is unfortunate, but the boys are so great that you almost forget. Yeah, so there is a private school for boys in the town of Henrietta, Virginia, which is fictional, but is based on Stanton, Virginia, which is very cute. Yeah, so the school for rich, mostly white boys is Aglionby Academy, and the uniform is a sweater with a raven insignia on it.
Yeah.
So she refers to them disdainfully as the Raven Boys.
I thought they had a different name, though. No, Aglionby. Aglionby Academy
Yeah.
is what it's called.
Is what the school is called.
Those Aglian Bee boys is what I would refer to everyone outside of the Raven boys being the protagonists of the book. Like, that's in my head how it works. But anyways, so it follows these
You're
kids.
entitled to your wrong opinion.
It's not an opinion. It's just how my brain is deciphering this bullshit. Yeah, well, you heard me. It follows these kids who are super gay for each other.
Like, all of them.
All of them, like...
in different combinations.
Right. It's like, I don't know, it's the typical group of teen boys that hang out together. That, like, yeah, spend all of their time together and develop this stand-by-me sort of relationship / journey, because the story, like, they have this goal. I'm trying to keep it broad-ish.
Yeah.
I mean, so, we can get into details, but...
Gansey has the goal.
Gansey has the goal.
Gansey is the leader, so...
Yeah, and it's essentially, it's not about what his goal is or, like, what they're trying to achieve. It's really, at least for me, how I'm reading it, it's what they learn along the way, but what they learn about each other and their own personal demons that they have to deal with. And, like, it's a coming-of-age story, in a sense. It's not about the dead body in Stand By Me. It's about their relationships to each other.
Right. Like, the hunt for Owen Glendower, the dead Welsh king, which is sort of the air quotes plot of this series.
Right.
Yeah, is really just a vehicle for us to get closer to these characters and for them to get closer to each other. So Blue is the daughter of psychics, basically. Her mother is a psychic, and 300 Foxway, where she lives, is basically just like many of her female psychic relatives live there. She doesn't know who her father is, but she has many psychic mothers, and she attends the local public school. So she is not from the same world as these Raven boys. Captain of the Raven Boys, nobody calls him that, is Richard Campbell Gansey III. I love Gansey so much. He goes exclusively by Gansey. People who are rude call him Dick, which, you know. And then the other Raven Boys, for our purposes, are Ronan Lynch and Adam Parrish, and Noah Zerny, sort of.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's just a very endearing tale about all these boys that have no concept of, like, it seems like they only know as much as they let themselves know, in the way that, like, teen boys think they know everything. But, I mean, they don't even know things about each other for real. Like, the fact that Ronan has this ability of pulling things out of his dreams and making them a reality. And, like, Ronan himself doesn't even know the scope of those abilities.
Right.
Gansey has no concept of, like...
reality
as a whole.
So Gansey and Ronan are the sons of rich white families.
Right.
Which tells you a lot about them.
So, like, yeah, his first interaction with Blue is, like, she's doing her shitty...
She's a waitress at a shitty pizza place.
Yeah, and he's like, well, I can buy you for, like, I can buy your time, basically.
Yeah, like, so Adam thinks that Blue is cute, but doesn't want to go over and talk to her. Mm-hmm. So Gansey is like, well, I'll talk to her. I'll get her to come over. And she's like, I'm working. And he's like, something to the effect of, well, how much do you make in an hour? I can just do that. And she's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Right. But he's not doing it maliciously or anything. He's just stupid about it.
We learn that Gansey is never motivated by spite, or like he never has bad intentions.
Right. It's genuine. It's just obliviousness.
Yeah, super oblivious. But what is so endearing is that he tries so hard to do better.
Yeah.
All the time, and like he's so careful of what he says to people because he knows that he comes from, like, he's basically Virginia royalty.
Yeah.
And yeah, that he could easily be described as out of touch
Mm-hmm.
to people like Blue or to people like Adam, because although Adam is a Raven boy, he grew up in extreme poverty with an abusive father.
Yeah.
He's very touchy about a lot of that, reasonably.
Yeah.
Ronan is basically, when we come into the series, basically an orphan. His father has been somewhat recently murdered.
Mm-hmm.
Ronan was the one that found the body, which reasonably fucked him up a fair amount. And his mother is non-responsive, catatonic.
Yeah.
Which we learn is because Ronan's father had a similar ability to pull things out of his dreams. So Niall Lynch dreamed Aurora Lynch. Dreamed his wife. Which is a troubling concept.
Yeah.
And had 3 children with her. 2 children with her.
Right.
Yeah, so Ronan is one of 3 boys. The older Lynch son is Declan, and Ronan is in the middle. Matthew Lynch is the youngest. Matthew Lynch, we just found out, Ronan dreamt when he was 3 years old. Didn't even know he'd done it, which is heartbreaking.
So wait a minute. Ronan's father is dead,
Yes.
and his mother is catatonic.
Yes. Well, not at the moment. Wait. I don't remember what has happened and what hasn't. Is she still catatonic?
I feel like she is.
Okay. Well, spoilers.
Spoilers. Okay. Well, I was gonna ask if the father dreamed her up
Uh-huh.
and then dies,
Yeah.
that's what makes her catatonic.
Yes.
Because his I mean, we'll get into the oh fuck, I forgot what the name is. For the one, like the true dreamer.
The Grey Warren.
The Grey Warren, that's it.
Yeah.
And his father, who had the ability, but is like, there's this whole thing about there only being one.
Right. Many dream thieves, one Grey Warren.
Right.
Yeah.
So if his dad dies and loses the link, the quote unquote link to like his mother, who he, like, the father had dreamed up.
Right.
That's why she goes catatonic.
Yes. The dream cannot survive without the dreamer.
Right. And spoilers, but she does not remain catatonic. So
I forgot.
it's okay.
That. Although I feel like,
I mean, maybe it did, and I missed it. But I feel like
they
it would have been a
brought
bigger.
her to Cabe's Water. She's not at the barns anymore. Ronan has been going back a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think she's there. I think they brought her to Cabe's Water. And yeah, because he's trying to figure out how to bring Cabe's Water out of Cabe's Water, basically, to wake up the other dreams.
Ah.
Because bringing his mother to Cabe's Water, which is this mystical forest that we have not really explained too much. By we, I mean where Matt is in the books.
Yeah.
By bringing Aurora into Cabe's Water, she was no longer catatonic. It woke her.
Okay. So then the dreaming ability is linked to Cabe's Water.
Maybe.
I mean,
something about
there's
dreams
something, a
respond
connection
to Cabe's Water
of some sort.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Matt is fascinated by the technicalities of the dreaming, which to me is one of the least interesting parts of the story. I don't care how it's made. I care about how it makes Ronan feel.
I mean,
which is sad.
That could be just by nature of me having, like, I don't know if that's never mind. Forget what I was saying. I was going to say, I've just watched a lot of content and I've seen similar stories in the past. And I don't know if that's why sometimes I check out of those details and tune into how it works, because this world is different than, like, Harry Potter's world or, like, the CW world or,
right.
I don't know. But you've also read a lot, so I don't know if that's a fair assessment, because you also read a lot of like young adult fantasy type stories, so
Yeah, I love it.
I don't know.
Are you responding emotionally to any character dynamics or any like?
Well, yeah, all of the characters are very sweet and endearing and stupid, but
Even Ronan, who's such a dick, like
yeah,
he's not.
he has like, I don't know. It's very strange how in the beginning these seemed that like the type of boys that I would despise if they were real.
And Blue did.
Yeah, totally. And
Yeah.
like I sided 100% with her
Right.
first impressions
She's
of
such
them.
a feminist, which is
And
amazing.
I guess this just goes into the thing, like, until you get to know somebody, you don't really know them.
Which is annoying, because sometimes
Your
men
first
are
impression
just
is
shit.
exactly
Yeah.
it's on the money.
Like, I saw a guy in a pickup truck, and I was like, I bet that's not a nice person. And then I was like, wow, I probably shouldn't say that. And then he drove ahead of us and had a Trump Pence bumper sticker.
Yeah.
Like, vindication. Anyway, yeah, these characters are all deeper than what they appear.
Right.
Like, Ronan is a dick, like, out of self-defense, almost. This kid has lost so much. He has been hurt so much. So, of course he pushes people away. Even people who are trying to be kind to him. Almost more so those people. Yeah, and Gansey is basically a prince, but, like, he's trying so hard to not be just that.
Mm-hmm.
And Adam has so much on his plate. Poor
Right.
Adam has to work like 3 jobs to keep himself financially able to attend Aglianby.
Mm-hmm.
And that's on top of keeping up with the schoolwork, where he feels like he has to be the best because he thinks that everyone can tell that he came from nothing.
Yeah.
And is deeply sensitive about that. And that's not even touching the stuff with his father, which would of course fuck him up.
Mm-hmm.
And Gansey is trying so hard to help Adam, but Adam doesn't want to take any handouts. He's deeply sensitive about not like getting anybody's pity or anything he hasn't earned.
Yeah.
Which leads to a lot of fighting because like Gansey doesn't know what else he can do. And Ronan does like the sneaky stuff of like, there was a tuition increase from Aglianby, and Ronan did like some secret finagling that Adam's rent was lowered by like the exact same amount
Right.
of the tuition increase. And Adam definitely yelled at Gansey about that, and Ronan was like,
Right.
It's just interesting.
It is interesting.
The levels and the dynamics, and it's ever shifting. And yeah, like the hunt for Glendower is really just, it's something that they can all do together.
Yeah. That's just a trip for them to go on. And...
Yeah. And the fact that these impossible things keep happening.
Right.
Just like it really tests the bounds of the friendship, and it's just cool. It's a really cool story.
It is. And I'm definitely getting more into it. I know we're like almost to the end of the 3rd book. But I don't know. Maybe Blue Lily Lily Blue was the book that like things started clicking for me. I mean, there's a lot of interesting shit that happens in the first 2 books. And the fact that this book, like, we're not even finished with it, and yet, like, Glendower's daughter is who we find. I don't know. I don't really have any predictions on where it could go, because I wasn't expecting it to go where it did.
Yeah. Yeah, like, there's certainly foreshadowing laid out, but not really for what happens with this quest.
Yeah.
It's just for, like, interpersonal dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have sort of thought from the beginning that Blue and Gansey were going to end up together because of her curse and his being, you know, doomed to die by the end of the year.
Right.
Oh, right. Blue's whole life, she has been told that if she kisses her true love, he will die.
Right.
And at the beginning of the first book, she does graveyard watch with one of her psychic relatives, because on St. Mark's Eve, you can see the spirits on the corpse road, or ley line, of people who will die within the next year. And this is before she's met any of the boys.
Mm-hmm.
And she sees Gansy's spirit on the corpse road. So we might have drawn some conclusions there.
Yeah. Which doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility.
But at the same time, so yeah, as foregone of a conclusion as that seems, it has built itself very slowly and
Mm-hmm.
very organically.
Yeah.
And very sweetly. Like, the way, like, you know, they call each other in the middle of the night when they've had, like, a shitty day, and it's not sexy. It's just because they get comfort from the other. It's really nice. It's like the slowest of slow burn young adult romances, and I live for it.
I know. I do remember when you were reading these books the first time through, how excited and everything you were to just unload, like, after reading a chapter or wherever you'd stop for the night. To just tell me, like, oh my god, this thing happened, and then this thing happened, and at the time, I had no frame of reference.
I was wondering how much of that you had retained.
I retained a little bit of it. No. I tend to not do that, because I do know that if you're excited about a book enough, you will have me read it in some fashion.
Yeah.
So I tend to not listen to, like, plot details, just how it's made you feel.
And I was also, like, I tried to be so careful with Raven Boys, because I knew, probably by the time I got to Blue Lily, Lily Blue, that this was going to be something I wanted to share with you.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I was just so caught up in it that it was just all I wanted to talk about.
Right.
Which, you know, I read a lot. And for a series to grab me like this, like, it hasn't in a really long time. One of our friends has also read this series, and she said that, like, not since Harry Potter has she felt so swept up.
Yeah.
She actually, like, would only allow herself to read, like, one chapter a day of the last book, because she wanted it to last as long as possible.
Yeah.
Which is very cool. So anyway. All right, do we have any other thoughts and feelings on Raven Boys?
I mean, I don't think so. You know, you and I mean, you check in with me every time we've read a chunk of it.
Because I like talking about it.
I know. But I think I covered everything I wanted to.
Okay.
But is there anything you would like to cover?
I don't think so. I think we should check back in after we've finished it. Maybe before we start Call Down the Hawk.
Okay.
So, what have you been watching lately?
Well, considering that this was February 12th,
Right.
like, that was our last episode that went live.
Good lord. It feels like longer.
It does feel like longer, because this is 2020, baby.
We haven't even touched what we've done this year.
No.
We'll get to that. It hasn't been much.
Right. Yeah, it's been quite a year.
To put it mildly.
Right. And I don't have to explain why, I shouldn't think. Unless in, like, 1,000 years, this, like, podcasts are tossed around like currency, since there's so much fucking podcasts in the world, that they're like, yeah, here you go. And then they toss our episode out, and they're like, we don't even know what time period this is from.
2020 was the year of COVID, among other things. Go.
Just for posterity.
Right.
So I don't know. In the beginning, I would watch a ton of shit, like 3 to 4 movies a day if I could, because I had the time. And then, like, 2 months after that, I just got really sad. Like, the thing that happens that, like, you bring up Netflix, you're like, I'm gonna watch something, and then you scroll through all of the options, and you're like, nothing looks good to me.
Like, the first worldiest of first world problems, but, like, calling it the oppression of choice sounds really dramatic, but sometimes having too many options is hard.
Right.
Emotionally.
It wasn't that there were too many options, it's that nothing seemed good. Like nothing, like I was equating it to Netflix because it's the same idea,
Oh,
but
gotcha.
driven by different motivations. So yes, it is the oppression of choice when looking at Netflix. However, in my circumstance, it's the depression of 2020.
Not oppression, depression.
Depression.
A little different.
Yeah, just nothing seemed good. Like stuff that I would be like, oh, that'd be cool to watch, and then I'd scroll past it because I don't want to get into all that. And it would just keep happening over and over again. So like I tended to turn away a little more from movies and look at television a little bit. So I watched a bunch of 90s animated series, like Back to the Future and Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures and The Mask, all of the properties that they were like, this was a hit popular movie. Let's make an animated series based on it, but we'll make it for kids, so it will have nothing to do with what the movie was actually about. And so, yeah, it's interesting to see what holds up and what doesn't from animated series that I probably mindlessly watched as a kid. But after going through all the television shows, I was like, let's try video games for a while, and that didn't seem to do it. So I just focused on making toys. That was like trying to be productive this year has also been tough. But I've tried to like fill my time with those things to try to get my mind off of other things. So like I made a Friday the 13th diorama for like $25. Trying to make it as elaborate and versatile as possible while keeping the cost low, which was a fun experiment. And then
the Matthew Danko sweet spot.
Yeah, exactly. I got into toy photography a little bit, so I bought some lenses for my phone and like some lighting set up, still trying to keep it cheap because, you know, I don't want to spend $1,000 on a setup, especially when we move so frequently.
Which we'll get to.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I've just kind of been, you know, racking my brain for things to do. But one of the cool things that I recently discovered and that Hillary and I had talked about were 3D puzzles. Because it's sort of a mindless task that we can do and build a picture out of and whatnot. And
it occupies a different part of the brain.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
It's fascinating how much more enjoyment I've gotten out of things just by doing the puzzle. But I found these Harry Potter puzzles that you build Hogwarts, basically.
Purchased secondhand, so fucking J.K. Rowling doesn't get any of our goddamn money.
Right. So yeah, that's kind of all I've been doing as of late. It's been a mixed bag because this year has also been a mixed bag.
Surviving is mainly what's been happening this year, which is appropriate and acceptable.
Right.
So what have we been up to this year, Matt?
Well, the last time we recorded a podcast, we were living in Pittsburgh.
Right. We are now on another side of the country.
Yeah.
We are in Tucson, Arizona, which is different.
Vastly different.
Vastly different. It is December, and it is December, right?
Yes, it's December 24th.
Tomorrow.
Merry, happy Christmas
it's
Eve.
Practically here. Merry shitsgram. So, yeah, so it's December, and we are sleeping with the air conditioning on still. Not because we're polar bears, because we live in the desert.
Yeah.
We moved to Tucson because we were tired of Pittsburgh, looking for a change. I got in contact with Montessori schools everywhere, like all over the country. And I, you know, what words am I looking for? I reached out to a school in Tucson because we had friends who were moving here, and I was like, so it was kind of on my radar already, and I was like, that could be fun.
Yeah.
And they got back to me, and they interviewed me, and they seem to really like me. So I am teaching remote preschool / kindergarten, which is a hoot.
Crazy to think of.
It's bananas. We don't love Tucson. The summer, we moved in July, which is apparently like the worst time to move to Tucson. Literally everything was on fire. It was over 105 degrees every day. Sometimes up to 110 and over that, which, like, Yes, it's a dry heat. So if you live on the East Coast and you're thinking of 110 degrees, it's not that bad.
Right. Like, it's not great because it's still hot.
Right. It still feels like your body is slowly dying
But
every time you walk outside.
Right. But it's not dying with, like, a weighted blanket on you of moisture.
It's being baked, not, like, poached.
Blanched.
Sure.
Right.
So, we do not love the climate. That being said, so far, Tucson, what we have been able to see of it, it's pretty cool. The hiking has been gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a small town.
Yeah.
So, like, literally everything is about 10 to 20 minutes away from us.
Yeah.
Like, literally everything.
Like, everything. And, like, cool stuff.
Yeah.
We haven't been able to experience much, but, like, there are a bunch of farmers markets. There's a little food co-op, which is adorable.
There's literally a bike trail that goes around the entire town because bikes are one of the more accepted modes of travel in Tucson.
I mean, it's really flat.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. So it lends itself to that because in
Right.
Pittsburgh, everything's on a hill, so it's awful.
Right. Sorry about the noise.
Yeah, because our upstairs neighbors are dickheads, and they just...
Inconsiderate.
Yes.
At least they're not playing guitar.
Yeah.
So loud we can feel it in our torsos.
That was rough.
That was horrible.
Also different neighbors.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I hate all of them.
I get that.
So Tucson is okay. I like my school a lot.
Yeah.
They seem to really like me,
The
which is
teachers
a bonus.
and the kids both really like you.
Teachers and the kids, which is really nice. We haven't been able to experience much of what the city has to offer because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Arizona's numbers have always been insanely high, although most of that is focused around Phoenix.
Right. Luckily, Tucson is not great, but it's marginally better than
We do have a
Phoenix.
lesbian mayor, which is something.
Right. Yeah, and having to deal with moving during a pandemic
that was a shit
was
show.
crazy.
We drove across the country in like the end of June.
Mm-hmm.
Which like so our original plan was to move in April.
Yeah, because our lease was ending.
Yeah, and we were gonna just go, but we kept pushing it because it kept looking really bad. And eventually we had to make the decision, like, either we have to just pull the plug and stay here for another year, or we have to pull the plug and just go.
Right.
And we talked it out as we talk everything out, and we came to the conclusion that while, like, we could probably easily do another year in Pittsburgh logistically, we didn't want to. We wanted to just go. And
it made sense at the time. And
it did.
We did it carefully and thoughtfully.
We were exceedingly careful.
Yeah.
And we didn't get COVID from our road trip. So
Right.
that was nice. We quarantined for 2 weeks after we got here because we didn't want to bring Pittsburgh COVID to Tucson.
Yeah. And Pittsburgh
or
at the
anything
time
in
was
between.
just opening up again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a rough year. It's obviously been a really hard year to be a teacher, especially at a new school.
And for the age group.
Yeah. Figuring out how to do Montessori for the 3 to 6 age online remains a challenge because so much of the Montessori philosophy is making learning tactile, tangible.
Yeah.
Which is really hard to do because the Montessori materials they're beautifully made, and that specific age group, like, I mean, the philosophy has, like, schools have been using the same materials since Maria Montessori made them in, like, the 1890s. So they're not easy to make. They're not cheap to make. But at the same time, we've been trying to make them out of paper, and, you know, like, our kindergartners can handle them being made out of paper. Our 3-year-old, we have to put, like, a little bit more work into it because he's not ready for, you know, a bead chain made out of paper. He can't, like, put his fingers around the beads and feel what 13 means. Like,
right.
So, luckily, the woman who is the lead teacher in my class is a Montessori genius. She has been through Montessori training like 3 times.
Yeah.
There's a shadow on your face that I keep thinking is your nose bleeding, but it's not. Yeah, she's been through, there are like 2 different kinds of Montessori training. There's AMI and AMS. Basically, one of them is international and one of them is American. So yeah, I'm really lucky to be working with this teacher who knows so much and who values my input greatly.
Because you're a rock star, and everyone who has ever hired you knows that. But they do know it. Whether they appreciate it or take it for granted is a whole different story. Busch Gardens, fuck you guys.
Yeah.
Just
a big old bucket of fuck you.
But no, I'm like really proud of you for having to deal with this, but also doing it with grace and courtesy, as is the Montessori way.
It's very cool. And like, the school is also taking insane precautions.
Yes.
Insanely good, like appropriate. There are 2 of the primary classes are on campus, and they have, the state requires, if you're going to have remote learning, that you also provide an on-site study hall, which sounds really, really dumb, but is for the benefit of children who don't have access to the internet. So there are children and adults on campus, and so far there has only been 1 COVID case, which is a fucking miracle. Like,
yeah.
So I am very lucky to have a job that I like, where I feel valued, where I feel safe.
Yeah.
All that being said, it's really goddamn stressful, and I have 2 weeks off for Christmas, and I have spent the majority of that time so far on our couch.
But it's a comfy couch.
It's a great couch.
No, I'm glad that they're taking it seriously and taking the precautions they are, because, like, as much as I want you to be able to follow your dreams, with COVID, everything becomes complicated.
Right.
And, I mean, it's why you're not doing the certification right now.
Right.
Because, A, it wouldn't be as much of the experience that you're going for is not just the education, but to literally, like, learn and get your hands on things and, like, do it the Montessori way.
Right. It's not just checking off a box. It's
exactly.
Something that's important to me.
Right. So, like, I'm glad that is on hold for the time being until the country figures its fucking shit out and people become less selfish, which won't happen. But, like, I don't know. It's peace of mind for me knowing that you're going to a job that's not putting you in danger for unnecessary reasons.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
I agree. The biggest risk that we take is socializing with our friends, one of whom is a doctor.
Yes, but no, you got it.
I mean, mentally, it's important. But also, we know that they are taking probably not excessive precautions. That sounds like judgmental. But
we trust them with the precautions that they're taking.
Right. I mean, the husband, Ben, who is a doctor, has, a huge motivation to not bring it home to his wife and child.
Right.
So
his pregnant wife.
Right. So we feel very safe even with that risk that we're taking.
And we know that, like, if they felt uncomfortable for either their own sake or our sake, that they would speak up and that we would deal with it from there. And same with us. We know that if we felt uncomfortable, we could opt not to go or talk to them and figure out something else.
Open, honest communication.
Not just for relationships between a significant other.
Exactly.
But everyone in your life, every relationship you have, just fucking communicate.
Yeah, and that has been so important in 2020. And I'm going to take a moment here on this podcast to say that people are talking about things they accomplished this year, even in the midst of, like, a crazy global pandemic. I'm not going to do that. I don't know. I haven't made any major accomplishments this year. There are things that I'm proud of, but we're not measuring this year by that metric.
Totally.
This year is about survival. One of the things that I am the most proud of about this year is that my relationship with Matt survived. Not that it was in danger of not surviving, but during a time when we are both more stressed than we have ever been, we are still taking the time to check in with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And if there are evenings where I get home from work and I am burnt out, like the tank is empty, and Matt is burnt out because he's had a shitty, depressing day, and like if we're snapping at each other, we exit the situation. We wait until the tension is abated a little bit, and we talk about it, and we say, hey, this is what I'm feeling right now, and it's not, there wasn't a specific inciting incident, but this is how I'm feeling. I shouldn't have taken it out on you, but this is why it happened. I know it wasn't okay. Like,
yeah,
we're just checking in.
And I get to a degree why it's hard for people to do that, because not just the external influences like the TV and movies that we've watched, where really the biggest conflict in anything is that people are just not communicating.
Don't goddamn talk to each other.
But that people approach relationships as this sort of game where they don't know what's in the other person's head. So they take it upon themselves to figure it out without including the other person in that. And that's really where all the conflict on TV comes from, is they try to work on the problem that they think is there with no external help from that person.
You ever seen Friends?
Right.
Every goddamn episode.
Yes. And if they just took the time to sit down and talk about how they were feeling, it would make things go a lot smoother. I get why people don't do that for those reasons, but also like confronting somebody or, sharing feelings with somebody is a part of, like, a personal part of yourself that, depending on who you're sharing it with, like, you don't know how it's going to be perceived or received. And, like, also just the uncomfortable nature of making yourself vulnerable and
the mortifying ordeal of being known.
Yes, exactly. But it's true. It's
important.
Yeah, sharing that part of yourself, like that part that's kept away and you only have your internal monologue to, like, work it out with. It's challenging and can make the other person feel uncomfortable, can make yourself feel uncomfortable. But if you can get over that, if you can just say the words, no matter how the other person might feel about it, after that time has passed, it does get better. Like,
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Thank God our relationship started
Yes.
with that. Because if we had to develop that practice this year, would not have been easy.
Right. Totally.
This is also actually a great segue into talking about Supergirl, because I think that Supergirl does a fantastic job of creating conflict without relying on poor communication for drama. Yeah. And I am thinking specifically about season 3.
The girl power season.
The girl power season. Spoilers for Supergirl. So at the end of season 2, Mon-El gets shot
booted
into
a black hole.
It ends up in
warped.
the future, and it's like a whole. Mon-El is Supergirl, Kara Danvers' love interest. And he comes back in season 3, and he's being all cagey and weird. And it turns out, so like in Kara's timeline, Mon-El has only been gone for 6 months?
7
months. No, it's 6 months, because Mon-El has been in the future for 7 years.
Yeah, but he says it was 7 months for you, but it was 7 years for me.
All right.
That's the only reason I remember it.
I believe you.
Okay.
Mon-El starts out as a bit of a dick, but by the time we see him again in season 3, he is beloved. And during the 7 years he was in the future, he got married. It had been 7 years.
He just Mariana'd that shit. All of his character development happened outside of the show.
Oh, that was beautiful. Makes me love you more. But when he comes back to Kara's timeline with the Legion of Superheroes...
Dope, by the way.
Right. Not timeline. Her moment in time, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter. His wife comes with him because she's also part of the Legion of Superheroes. And that is, like, such a difficult, impossible situation. But, like, the whole time, Mon-El is communicating with his wife and with Kara, and like they're all talking about their feelings and being very, very upfront about like, this is really hard for me. And I don't know what to do about it. There's still so much emotional conflict.
Yeah.
But nobody's being a shitty person.
Right. And I think, like, because he's in this pod on the ship and it gets opened or he gets woken prematurely. And, like, for maybe the rest of that episode, it's weird because he doesn't know how to deal with the reality of the fact that he's back in the time that he left, and also that he has lived 7 years of his life.
Right.
So there is a little bit of, like, I don't want to tell her everything because...
There's also the idea of, like, not wanting to wreck the future.
Yeah.
And not wanting to hurt her unnecessarily because they were so in love.
Yeah, and he has to deal with that. But again, it only happens for, like, an episode. And you can also understand.
Right.
It's not just like, oh, my wife, like, did this thing I didn't like and I don't know how to tell her about it. It's like... there are real stakes here.
Right. Yeah, and like it would have been so easy for them to be like, oh, let's just not tell Kara that we're married.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, I won't tell my wife that Kara was my ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
Like it would have been so easy to do that.
Right.
But they didn't. They chose the emotionally healthy route. And there was still conflict. There were still stakes. Like,
yeah.
So you can do it and showcase healthy relationships.
Right.
It's possible.
And anytime that there is a moment of, like, particularly with Lena Luthor and Supergirl
Lena.
and Kara, because there is a good portion of the show, spoilers, that Lena Luthor doesn't know that Kara Danvers is Supergirl.
I would die for Lena Luthor.
I would too.
Just to put that
Katie
out
McGrath is
Chef's
the
kiss.
best. Yes. So there is a little bit of, like, I can't tell Lena I'm Supergirl, but it's not, like...
It's not just keeping it from her.
Right.
It's, like, Kara has real reasons to not tell her. Like, for Lena's safety. And also, and then it gets to the point where Lena Luthor, as, you know, the non-villain of the Luthor family, has had her trust betrayed so many times. And she's been so open with Kara about how often she's been hurt by people lying to her and betraying her trust that, like... And it's so hard because when it's early enough in the friendship where it would be okay to reveal, you know, that there was a secret being kept.
Yeah.
Then, like, you weren't really close enough to share that information. But by the time you're close enough that it would be appropriate to share, it would break Lena's heart.
Yeah, and luckily we get to see that whole episode play out. Where, like, after she's dealing with the fact that Lena knows and, like, Lena is now not pretending to not know because there's that whole thing of, like, Lex Luthor's dying breath is like, oh, by the way, all of your friends have been lying to you. You're a fool. Kara Danvers is Supergirl. And then
Lena's
just kicks the bucket.
Worst nightmare.
Yeah. So Lena's like, oh my God, I've been a fool. Like, the way Lex Luthor plays chess with every single person, he does it in the last few moments to make her lose her mind and pretend to be Supergirl's friend a little longer before Kara can tell her that she is Supergirl.
Right.
That all being said, we get to see, like, an It's a Wonderful Life type episode where Mixless Pedlick, a very wonderful character that I cannot believe the CW has done, but also it doesn't surprise me because they make the moves
that... They did Gorilla Grodd versus
yeah,
King
I
Shark.
know, man. That was also amazing.
Seriously, if you're not watching the DCCW shows, you are missing the fuck out.
Not a real DC fan.
I'm gonna beat the shit out of you with this microphone.
Not you.
Oh, okay.
I was talking about the people that aren't watching these shows. God, keep up. Anyways.
Anywho.
We got to see an episode of, like, all the different moments that Kara could have told Lena her secret and how it played out.
Yeah.
And there was just never a good time.
Yeah.
So Kara has to deal with, okay, I guess I couldn't have made things any better, even if our first introduction was, hey, by the way, Kara Danvers is Supergirl. Like, spilling her secret moment one. There was never going to be a time where it ended up okay.
Right.
And so she deals with that and is like, I can't change the past. I can only change what's going to happen. Yeah. And then it starts the process of her and Lena building back their relationship.
Yeah, of Kara realizing that although she is certainly to blame for part of it, Lena's actions moving forward are her own. And Kara doesn't have to take the blame for everything.
Right.
Lena does need to take responsibility for the reprehensible villain-like things she has been doing.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say about Supergirl...
Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's okay. Is that the other thing that this show specifically does really, really well is play up the importance of non-romantic relationships.
Yeah.
Like, Kara, she has the thing with Mon-El. There's like a thinglet with Jimmy Olsen that's over before it begins.
James.
Right. The hulking black man.
The tall black man.
Ugh.
James, and not the ginger, curly-headed white kid, Jimmy.
CW. You told us right away what this show was going to be.
Totally.
But the central relationship in Kara Danvers' life is not romantic.
Yeah.
It's with her sister.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, whenever you have to put someone in danger to get Kara to make an impossible decision, it's Alex. It's it's not a boyfriend or anyone. Like, it's her sister, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the relationship with Lena becomes that. Like, just strong female friendships.
Yeah.
It's so
I would like to see, because I didn't watch much of Smallville, but thinking about Smallville, like, Superman didn't have a sibling. He just grew up. So all of his relationships are either his foster parents, the Kents, or his friendships.
Okay.
No, I don't know. I know
until he meets Lois.
Right. Well, yeah. So, like, on Smallville, they do the CW thing a little bit, where they bring in recognizable characters. In fact, they build a Justice League of sorts, where, like, there's, I believe, Impulse, which is, in the comic books, it's Barry's son, Bart, I think. And he's the fastest man alive. In that timeline, there's also Cyborg, I believe they bring in. They do bring in Green Arrow and maybe Aquaman. I can't remember who else, but...
Is he on the swim team?
Maybe. I feel like it. But yeah, so I would be interested to see how it works on Smallville compared to Supergirl, who's like, comes to Earth and has to live with this family now and suppress her powers, because we do get a lot of backstory for Kara and how she grew up.
Yeah.
Just to see how it plays out. Granted, it was made in the 2000s, like that time period, so it's not going to be super woke, but I would be curious how it compares just with the relationship building. Because I do think the CW knocks out of the park the non-romantic relationships, the non-toxic masculinity, just sharing feelings with each other, and like it's okay just showing emotions with each other.
The men cry when they're sad.
Like the Flash, who is the paragon of love.
Oh my god, Barry Allen breaks my heart regularly.
Even before it's established in Crisis on Infinite Earths, obviously there is the prototype, the comic books Crisis on Infinite Earth, but like from moment one, Barry Allen is all about love.
The entire show is just, it's built
before
on
thinking
the
about the bigger picture. It's all about like Joe West's love for his adoptive son and like his love for Iris and Wally, who comes into the picture later on, and how Barry loves his friends. And like even Cisco's relationship with Harrison Wells, who turns out to be Eobard Thawne.
Right.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah. Like all of the relationships are based on love and like the many different types of love.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. And then Supergirl comes in hot as the paragon of hope.
Yeah.
And duh.
Right.
And then Kate Kane, who's the paragon of spite. No, courage.
I mean, this rewatch is definitely
sassy little lesbian.
Like out of the gate, just spiteful and like, fuck you, I'm gonna do what I want.
Right, like that's not Beth. It is, and I'll prove it.
Yeah.
Okay.
She did it at the dinner table. She's like, so Alice is Beth.
Like brings up the idea that maybe Alice is Beth, and then her dad's like, it's not, and she's like, no, but she is.
Yeah. I stole her knife. That's
I
our
will
birthstone.
die on this hill now.
Yeah, you can't convince me otherwise.
Oh, Kate Kane. I will miss her so much.
I know. So
yeah,
let's shift into Batwoman since we're
gonna just keep going.
We're gonna
do
keep going
this forever. Okay.
Just a little longer.
Okay. I don't remember when we started, but I do think it's been
We're
close
coming
to
on
2
an hour.
hours. Oh, really?
1 hour. Jesus Christ. I know time moves differently this year, but
Ugh.
I know when it's been 2 hours.
So Batwoman, what do you want to tell me about Batwoman?
No, so our last episode that we did was Crisis on Infinite Earths. We got a ton of story and jumping off points with what the DCCW will be.
Because it like shook up the universe and like changed it a little bit, and now so Supergirl was on a different Earth the whole time.
Yeah, Earth 39.
Post-Crisis, she is on Earth Prime with all of the other characters.
Yeah,
which is new and different.
Yeah, and which also means that Superman is also on this Earth
when he's not on Argo.
Right.
Yeah, we don't know where Superman and Lois will be when they show up.
Supergirl takes place in National City, and Superman is Metropolis. Like,
I was thinking about that last night when I was failing to fall asleep. That they did Batwoman did a really cool thing where like Supergirl could operate in a different city. Like Superman has always been Metropolis.
Yeah,
that has always been his home. So you could put Supergirl somewhere else and the shtick would still work.
Mm-hmm.
Batman/Batwoman can't really operate outside of Gotham.
See, I do agree with that. I don't know much about Batwoman from the comic books, so I don't know where, in fact, she does operate.
Okay.
But I was thinking about that because Nightwing, his whole shtick is he can't be Robin anymore. He has to be his own hero and becomes Nightwing. Okay. And then Nightwing fucks off to Bloodhaven. Oh. So he's like their Batman, but not at the same level that Batman is. So it is curious how you could do Batwoman not in Gotham, because I don't know if it would work.
And so because this was like a big, huge move for the DCCW, was bringing in Gotham and the Bat concept.
Yes.
I also think that if they had tried to do it in a different city, then it would have been indistinguishable from like Star City.
Oh, yeah.
Because Star City is also a garbage hellscape. So if you're going to bring in a similar character, you should also bring in the character of Gotham City.
Right. That's fair.
Sorry.
No. Sorry. You were still making a point.
So by placing Kate Kane in Gotham, you then had to first answer the question, well, where is Batman? Why isn't he there? Or, is this just a world where Batman has never existed?
Yeah.
But they answered that question right off the bat. Like,
they do embrace it.
Batman has not been seen in Gotham City for 3 years.
Yeah.
Neither has Bruce Wayne.
We don't look at that.
Right.
We don't question
Nobody noticed that except us.
But they have a bat signal already established. Yeah. And they're like, we've lit this thing. I feel like they've lit it every night since Batman has been gone, and so now they're like, okay, we have to turn it off. Like, we have to put the bat to rest.
Because he's not here.
He's not here. He's not coming. We need help. Right. Yes, and like the whole Crows private security division thing.
I wish they'd done more with that now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah. Although I would imagine that having a Batwoman who is not, the daughter of the King of the Crows, and Ryan Wilder, we think, grew up on the streets, right?
I feel like I read that somewhere.
So she would have more of an opinion about a private security company for the wealthy. Yes. Which just crossed my mind.
Right. So, one of the other things in the Bat mythos is when Bruce Wayne comes back to Gotham after traveling and learning all that shit, he spends some time on the streets to figure out how it's operating. Okay. So it would be nice if they lean into that from minute one of Ryan Wilder's character. Like, she either grew up on the streets or maybe her family, because you're also dealing with her being a person of color. Right. And I think it's super important to tie that into how fucked up Gotham is, on the operational level. Like, the same way where, every politician in this country is corrupt and like the system stinks and just all of these things that we know to be true, it's kind of isolated in Gotham. So Gotham is like a metaphor for America as a whole, right? So everything is corrupt. All the money is being put elsewhere instead of fixing the infrastructure of Gotham. So it would be nice to have the perspective of somebody who has dealt with that hardship, and you don't even have to like lean into that so much, but just make it something that she is concerned about, so that it inspires her to see, you know, Batwoman's this different type of hero than Batman was, which sucks though, because we don't. This is the difficult part of Ruby Rose leaving so early.
Kate Kane got the fucking shaft, like so. Yeah, I mean, so in addition to her first season being Crisis, none of the shows were at their peak this season because everybody was very focused on making sure that everything was going to come together for Crisis. So then Crisis happens.
I feel like Supergirl, at least, was the closest.
Yeah. Yeah, Supergirl, I guess, was okay. But, I mean, Flash was...
Arrow was treading water. The Flash
Arrow was
had a lot of things going on.
None of which got resolved properly. So in addition to Crisis, there was also the fact that the seasons, all of them got cut short because of COVID. Yeah. So Kate Kane got shafted, and I don't know at what point Ruby Rose, you know, at what point the decision was made that she wasn't coming back.
Right.
Because I would imagine that if they had had time to do it properly, they probably would have written her off at the end of season 1. But as it is, the season ended and the announcement came out of nowhere that she wasn't coming back, which sucks because rewatching it, I love Kate Kane.
Yeah.
I feel so seen by that character. Like, Kara Danvers is a fantastic female superhero, but she is not the same kind of woman that I am.
She represents one type.
Yeah, and that's fine. It's lovely. It's wonderful. And, you know, obviously, I am not a gay woman, but Kate Kane feels much more like the kind of woman that I am.
Yeah.
Motivated by spite.
Yeah.
Just, like, very firm in who she is, and what she's gonna do about it.
Yeah.
She doesn't really take shit from anyone. She is firmly who she is. Which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
And I doubt that Ryan Wilder will feel as personal to me because I am not a woman of color. And I would imagine that will be a much more prominent factor of her character.
I hope so.
I hope so. It's important and appropriate that it is.
Yeah. I mean, so the thing in Batwoman, since we're rewatching season 1, when Kate Kane discovers that Bruce Wayne, her cousin, is Batman, she like sees the suit and everything, and it's like, holy shit. And then something in the episode causes her to be like, you know what?
I'm gonna put it on.
I'm gonna put the suit on. And the lovely line.
Yeah. She asks Luke Fox if he can fix the suit. And Luke says, that suit is literal perfection. And her response is, it will be when it fits a woman. And I scream every time.
It's a super dope line.
It's
and
so good.
I get why they put it in the trailer. But so she puts on the suit and it's fine. But now that stories are being picked up about Batman's back and all this other stuff, she's like, you know, because Batman had his own set of enemies, I have to figure out a way to, like, let everyone know that I'm not Batman.
Right.
And so she decks the suit out with red accents and puts on a red wig.
So that people know it's a woman.
That it's a woman, which is amazing.
It's very cool.
And the thing that I am very excited about for season 2 with Ryan Wilder taking up the mantle is that they've changed the hair from being the red wig. It's not
like flowing white lady hair.
Yeah, it is natural. I don't know how to say it.
It's a red afro, isn't it?
Well, I don't know if that's the term. I think of the traditional afro being the round
so it's
one.
it's
just her natural hair.
Yeah, like natural
curly, wavy hair.
Black hair.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
If we were insensitive in any part of that and you catch it, please let us know.
Please, we're just struggling for the terminology because obviously we don't come from
I'll look
that
it up
perspective.
after the podcast, and if it's wrong, we'll put a note or something.
But like that's the cool thing is they're
Yeah.
letting her be her own version of Batwoman,
Right.
which is super important for me as a Bat fan,
Right.
because it's one of the concepts that a lot of people in the fandom have misused, but it's that anybody could be Batman.
Anyone can wear the mask.
Yes, the Miles Morales, Peter Parker type deal, which is way easier when you can't see that it's a white dude underneath there. But it's something that they haven't tapped into a lot with any of the superhero shows.
Because only white men can be edgelords.
Well, no, it's because Arrow was about to give the torch to his daughter, Mia, and have her own show, Arrow and the Canaries. I don't care about how you feel about Mia.
No, I was going to say which might not happen.
Okay, yeah, and she herself has been like, I mean, it's still in talks, but we're still not sure. I would love to get the chance to play Arrow. But my point is, even with the Flash, like, it's only been a plot point when they've needed it. Like, I can't be the Flash forever, or like, this is my time, I'm gonna vanish in crisis. You have to do your part to be the Flash. But the concept of Batman has always been, it's a symbol. It's supposed to mean more, and like, anybody can put on the suit. The passing of the mantle is a big deal in the comics.
Yeah, and it would have been really cool to see it with a more established character.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, when Grant Gustin, if he gets the chance to pass on the mantle, that will be heartbreaking because he has been a fantastic Flash.
He has.
But getting back to Kate Kane and Batwoman, one of the other things that I thought was really, really cool that Kate Kane's Batwoman did, like, there's some point, it's got to be post-crisis because Kara writes the article in Catco,
right.
Where Batwoman, I don't remember the story, but she's helping like a teenage girl who doesn't fit in, and the little girl's like, it's a young lesbian girl, I think.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, what do you know? And Kate Kane's like, surprise, I'm hella gay.
Yeah.
And then she has, her new friend, Kara Danvers, the reporter, write an article for like Batwoman coming out as gay.
Yeah.
Because she knows that the symbol is important.
Right.
It was important that everyone know that she's a woman, and it was important to her that everyone know that she's gay, even though that helps narrow down who she is.
It does, but I'm pretty sure there's a few moments where she's like helping or with a male police officer, and there's a crowd of people, and they're like, "Oh, you saved him. You gonna kiss?" Or like, and she's like, "Fuck no."
Like, and even listening to like Vesper Fairchild, the radio personality, being like, "Where's Batwoman? Did she get dumped? Is she on her period?
Yeah.
Like fixing her hair?" Are you
like,
fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
The CW does that really, really well. They do it on Supergirl, too, where Kara and Lena are complaining about having to deal with misogynists in the way that powerful women always complain about that.
Right.
Because it's a fact of life.
Yeah. And it sucks that Batwoman had so much working against it.
Yeah.
From, like, the beginning, essentially. Because
the pilot is so good.
I mean, even, like, I assume that pilot was what was shown, and then they filmed the crossover Elseworlds after.
Yeah, because Elseworlds Batwoman doesn't really fit with the Batwoman we meet on her show.
Right.
Which is interesting.
Because that Batwoman is, like, established and...
Yeah, has been doing it for a while, has ownership over the city and the suit.
And it has a little more... skill and like Kate Kane is introduced right away as like a badass that can beat a person up. Yeah. But there are a lot of things that she is still unfamiliar with, and we don't really get the chance to see her fumbles or even know her backstory in the way that we got Oliver Queen and Leanne Yu.
Yeah.
So when she's introduced in Elseworlds, it's like this fucking cool moment. And
Oh
like
my
the
God.
whole Elseworlds, the way they bring in
Matt
Gotham.
shit himself.
Yeah, because here's the deal. So
Tell me this.
here's the thing. The thing is, we were watching, and like we knew Batwoman was going to be a show, and it was going to air in October.
We did not know.
We were catching up for Crisis,
Right.
and we got to the Elseworlds crossover, and we're watching. I believe it starts on Arrow, and maybe it starts on the Flash because
matter.
they've switched bodies.
Oh, that's such a good crossover.
It's such
so
a cool
funny.
crossover just by the concept alone that Barry and Oliver have now switched, and now
So it's like Quantum Leap.
right. And so like you're dealing with the coolness of that.
And just watching these two men take such delight in
Right.
these different roles.
And then which is wonderful to
It's
see
beautiful.
the
playfulness.
dynamic
It's
shift
great,
that
yeah.
way. But in the end of the first episode, the Monitor, who I think we had seen prior to this, comes in and is like, I think Cisco is vibing
Yeah.
the memory.
And Barry draws it, I think.
No, Oliver does because he has the speed, and he's like, "Wait a minute, I've seen that before." And then he draws it, and I'm like,
And Matt's like,
"Wait a minute," because
You see the Wayne
because
Enterprises.
in the flashback or the vibe, you can see this tall building that stands out from everything, and
You're
the
like,
sign is glowing, and I'm like, I know that building.
No.
Even having never seen it in this universe, I knew that building, what it was. And you see that it's Wayne Enterprises. And it's like, we're going to Gotham. And then you're like, holy shit, they're doing it. And then you see Batwoman on her fucking rooftop. And it's like, oh my god, this is how they chose to introduce her to the CW. And it's just perfect.
Magical. It's everything I wanted it to be.
So yes, I shit myself. Rightfully so.
Appropriately.
Yeah.
Matt had to get new pants at that moment.
Because I've seen so much Bat content in my
And it's been
life.
so bad.
All right. That's a pretty bold statement.
I'm right.
It hasn't been the Batman that I've been waiting for. Like, Ben Affleck came very close, and every time I rewatch the movies, I find a different thing to love about one of the older Batmans. Like, Val Kilmer is still an underrated Bruce Wayne. But the movies and whatever TV shows have done it hasn't really filled that capacity of Bat for me. But Kate Kane came in right out the gate and did it all in her 5-minute part in that episode.
Like, and it turns out the way to make me like Batman is to make it a
woman.
girl.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And like from the pilot was really strong,
So good.
but then from episodes 2 to I think 9,
Like up until Crisis,
Yeah.
it wasn't great. Like not a lot was happening that was compelling. The villain they chose was really weird, and like we weren't getting much in the way of backstory for Kate and how she had these abilities, and like
right.
yeah,
It just feels like,
felt a little forced. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, the plot felt
Plot
a little
felt
forced, not
Plus
her
the
being
fact
a
that it's a
Batwoman.
woman.
No,
It's just pandering.
because like I think Alice is a good villain, but I don't think it was right for season 1. I also think the Alice and Beth dichotomy thing that they tried to do, as we've talked about, they didn't really fulfill or drag out at all. Sorry.
Yeah, they could have had we, the audience, could have had so much more fun trying to figure out, is this really her sister, or are they fucking with us?
Right.
Because, I mean, Gotham villains are insane.
And we know that, like, that's all established because of how much back content exists.
Right.
So you can play with the ideas that people already have in their brain without relying on, like, too much exposition or too heavily on what's come before. Like the
Right.
pearls. Like, obviously we weren't going to see Bruce Wayne's parents die, and if we had, I would have
Thank
stopped
God,
watching the
like-
show. Because it's not relevant to this.
Right.
But we get the pearls sitting on the bookshelf in Wayne Enterprises, and we're like, oh my god, we know what those are.
There's a lot of iconic imagery.
Yeah.
That they use to great effect while still making it something new.
Yeah, because Batman had been operating for a while. Joker was also operating for a while. We don't know where any of these characters are, or if we'll ever see them.
Right. But
and
the stage has been set if they want to use them.
Yeah, although I do think post-Crisis, there is a newspaper heading about the Joker being dead.
Oh,
I can't remember.
The other really masterful thing that the show does, and we talked about this last night a little bit, was they give us the character of Luke Fox, who is Lucius?
Lucius, yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was Lucian for some reason. Lucius Fox's son, who is there to just oversee the empty Wayne Enterprises building, which also houses the Batcave. And Luke Fox is a really fantastic tie between Bruce Wayne as Batman and Kate. So Kate knew Bruce Wayne, her cousin, didn't know he was Batman, and Luke is able to bridge a lot of that emotionally and say, you know, this is what this toy does, and also Bruce felt really sad that he couldn't save your family. So there's a lot of that expositional stuff, that bridging that we need to tell the story.
Yeah.
That feels very organic. It's not like, why is he telling her that? She would already know, or like a lot of reading of his journals or whatever. Or like a
video log of Bruce Wayne making his last will and testament in video form.
It was a really masterful storytelling device to use.
And I'm very curious now. Well, obviously there's the huge question of where Batman is.
Yeah,
and
that's still there.
It's complicated because of how season 1 ends.
Yeah.
I think, no, we couldn't have talked about it if Crisis was the last thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because we hadn't finished.
But, spoilers. There's this plot line that's kind of in the background, but Hush becomes a thing. Thomas Elliot, who was Bruce Wayne's friend, gets his face cut off. And Alice, using some skills that she has, and also Mouse's, like, her sidekick's ailment is that he has a burnt face. She builds Thomas Elliot a new face in the look of Bruce Wayne.
So they cast Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, they cast an actor to play Bruce Wayne, who I guess was in like season 1 of Arrow or something like that. Yeah, just
briefly. As like a waiter or something.
Yeah, or like a rich friend that went
something.
Yeah. Definitely not supposed to be Bruce Wayne.
No.
But they've cast him, and now Thomas Elliot has Bruce Wayne's face. I think it's Thomas. Maybe it is Mouse.
I think it's Thomas.
Yeah. Yeah,
because it was
she
personal.
kills Mouse.
Forgot about that.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
But anyways, so yeah, Bruce Wayne is now he's going to reveal himself to be in Gotham. Has come back. But it's not actually him, which is interesting.
And this is like, it's so insane because by the end of the season, Kate's father is the leader of the Crows, this private security company.
Yeah.
I don't know why that word was so hard for me. And he is so anti-Batwoman, anti-vigilante. So Kate is like desperate for a mentor, for some sort of guidance.
Mm-hmm.
So then, you know, what we thought was going to happen was like Bruce comes back. Bruce, who has worn this mantle, who knows what it means, who knows what the responsibility is.
Yeah.
And she would just cling to that.
Yeah.
So
only family she has left, especially with how she goes with Alice. And
right.
All that.
Yeah. So if Thomas Elliot shows up wearing Bruce's face, he will be welcomed right in.
Yeah. Kate Kane will unload everything.
Which they dropped that bomb and now Kate Kane is leaving.
Yeah.
So what do you do with all of those pieces? I am very curious. Like, I don't see anything they can do other than just drop it. Mm-hmm. Because it won't be as meaningful to Ryan Wilder, who has no relation to the Waynes.
Right.
Who hasn't, had a season's worth of emotional struggles tied to being Batwoman.
And, Kate Kane you could have easily done so. Like Bruce Wayne comes back, there's huge fanfare in the city. Like Gotham's child is back and all that. He has a moniker in the books, but I can't remember. And then like Kate not trusting him in the beginning, like not knowing, like, why have you been gone this long? Why no communication?
Being like fishy
and
weird.
Him having to prove himself to Kate to gain her trust, and then Kate unloading everything, and then being betrayed when she finds out it's not Bruce Wayne, and then like because it leaves the door open for when Bruce Wayne actually does come back, or if he comes back.
And all of this would have served to continue pushing Kate Kane farther along this like dark path, because the problem that I have with a lot of Batman content is that we meet him fully formed as this dark, edgy, depressed character who cries on rooftops, and like we don't know how he got there or why he is like that. But watching, I mean, it's like with Ronan Lynch, like knowing why makes it so much more powerful, makes it so much more interesting. And like watching her get darker and darker and darker would have been such a cool journey.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because not only that, but like depending on when you wanted to do the Bruce Wayne thing, if you wanted to do it at all,
right,
you could toy around with any of Bruce's children. Like Dick Grayson comes in and is like, oh, so you're a Batwoman. And like having some sort of connection to who Bruce Wayne was as Batman. Yeah. Like that's why Luke works so well. Yeah. But he only knows a part of it. Right. Like Luke was probably, it was like, take your child to work day. Right. And like, because Lucius Fox trusts his kid and also has a relationship with Bruce Wayne and working for Wayne Enterprises, like Luke got to grow up around it. Right. So he still doesn't know everything, but he can give us a little bit of a taste of what it is from his perspective. And then as Kate Kane keeps going on her journey and kills that one dude and is like, oh my God, I've killed somebody and Bruce would never approve of this. And like, I've basically tarnished the Wayne and Kane names. But like struggling with that, but then also having like, Nightwing come in or Duke Thomas, who is Batwing, or
there's a wealth
Damian
of characters.
Wayne, who is literally from Bruce's blood. Like having any of those people come in to be like, it's okay. Bruce had to do this too. Like, he's dealt with all of this hardship before. Like, you're not doing it wrong. Things just have to happen the way they're happening, and having that tie to the old Gotham City and this new Gotham City that's emerging would have been so fascinating.
And the other thing is, like, what do you do with all the supporting characters who are there for Kate Kane? Like, so you have her
Mary.
father, you have Mary, her stepsister, who's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, Luke can work with someone else. There's not that emotional connection, really. Yeah. And then Sophie. Yeah. Sophie sucks, but like...
Sophie does.
But like, Sophie's whole reason for being there was emotional
maybe
development.
She will leave to find Kate Kane.
And are they going to keep Alice? Like...
I would keep Alice, but I wouldn't use her as much. Yeah. I would keep her as like... I don't know. Who, like, maybe over the course of season 2 becomes crazy and feels like maybe it's not that she had this strong connection with Kate, even though they were sisters, but like she has a strong connection with the Bat persona and then makes it like basically she would become the Joker prototype for every season going forward. That thinks she is tied to this one idea of who her sister is as like being at the opposite ends, like she's crazy and this person's a hero, and like make it all about that. But it feels super weird now that Kate Kane's not going to be in it. You have all of these supporting characters that were like on their way to fixing the problems that the first half of the season had.
Right. The second half was so good.
Yeah. It got instantly better after Crisis.
So emotionally rich.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I really hope they figure out something for Mary, because she's another one of those just fantastic CW characters where like superficially she's this, rich party girl or whatever who runs a secret like med clinic for homeless people, basically. Right. Like, Yeah, who's just so smart and capable. And they hadn't even... They sort of started pushing her and Luke together.
Yeah.
Which would have been cool, but they didn't even really get to do that completely. And I don't know if that's because of the season ending early or because they weren't ready to do that, which
Right.
a woman doesn't need a romantic relationship,
Right.
and neither does a black man. But that would have been something that could tie them together.
Yeah. I mean, I would say if Kate Kane disappears, because I do believe the episode is literally called, like, Whatever Happened to Kate Kane.
And they have said they are not killing her.
Right.
Which is good.
So, like, recasting her...
It's an option.
It is an option. It's going to get murky.
Yeah.
I don't imagine they would do it until either, like, season 2 is completed or near the end of season 2.
But they could pull another Crisis thing. Be like another, not a doppelganger, but
Yeah.
like someone that had the same name, like shook out of the universe.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I would watch that.
yeah. And there's precedent. They've done it before.
Right.
There's a Barry Allen.
I mean, they're...
Yeah.
Yeah, like, luckily on The Flash, Hartley Sawyer is literally made of a moldable plastic type thing, so they can change his face when he's no longer on the show, but still have Ralph Dibny.
I forgot that Hartley Sawyer was
Yeah.
that actor's name, because I was thinking Hartley Rathaway.
Who's Hartley Rathaway?
Andy Mientes.
Okay,
Hi
yes,
there,
that's
yeah.
what I was thinking, but I didn't know. Hartley, I didn't know his last name.
Yeah.
I think, but yeah, Hartley Sawyer is the actor's name that plays Ralph Dibny.
Who's off the show.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah, I mean,
Anyway,
whatever.
We don't have time for that.
Yeah.
I'm not really that interested in that.
I
He's
mean,
gone,
I
look it
like
up, it's
the
fine.
character,
Mm.
and I mean, I liked him as the actor, but that's gonna change anyway.
Right.
Yeah, it's just super unknowable right now, and there are so many different ways that it can go. And yeah, I think Mary's best role for her being, you know, this underground doctor, like, clinic facility, maybe that's how Ryan Wilder gets patched up.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe she was, like, she wasn't out there fighting crime, but maybe she was trying to right a wrong.
She already knows of Mary's clinic.
Yeah.
Because she's from this.
From this part of,
Yeah.
I think it's not the boroughs, but it's
Something.
there's some part of Gotham that's literally
The
like,
Glades.
it's similar to
Right.
that.
The part
There's a
of
name
town
for
where
it.
Nobody goes.
Yeah, like the
Yeah.
poor part of town.
Yeah.
Um,
What else was I gonna say? Basically, there are a lot of factors that could make this next season not great. However, the CW has yet to fail us with these shows.
that's true.
They have been very, very good at storytelling, even as the situations get more ridiculous. And, like, they do that cheesy thing so well that just about anything works because they are so sincere. There is so much heart in these shows. You can tell that the people who make them love them.
Yeah.
And also, if you haven't watched any of them, the pilots are fire. For Supergirl, we said was the only one that, like, it's watchable, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's just, The Flash is amazing.
I
Batwoman is
think The
amazing.
Flash is probably the best one.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
It is a phenomenal pilot. It feels like something they had in the bag for a really long time before
Yeah.
they got to do it. They
Right.
got to, like, think about it and tweak it
Yeah.
and play with it. It is
Yeah.
just, like, beat for beat perfect.
And it also helped that we got to see Barry Allen
Right.
before he was the Flash.
We got to meet him on Arrow. Which
And, like,
helps.
it kind of just seemed like this cool thing that they were like, oh my god, Barry Allen's here. Because at the end of that Arrow episode, the chemist or the scientist, like, the
I don't
episode that
remember
he's
what the
in,
episode's called. Yeah, but they
he
showed-
fucks off back to Central City, and then we see him get struck by lightning.
yeah, like, it could have ended there.
Yeah.
They didn't. And, like, he could have showed up on Arrow every so often. They did
Yeah.
that with a couple of other characters.
Yeah.
But he got his own show, and it's great.
Yeah. And the fact that they saved, like, the Flash, who is, sure, he might be the B team, but is part of the Justice League pretty regularly.
He is one of the better known characters that
Yeah.
they've done.
Yeah. To do
And-
after Arrow
Yeah,
was a smart move.
because it would kind of have made sense to do The Flash first to get everybody watching. But if you do Arrow first, you get a fan base that's dedicated to what you're doing, not to the idea of the character.
Exactly.
And that's what you need for this universe to work, because they are not doing anybody's idea of the character.
No. They're doing
great.
Another interpretation of the character, which is like a fundamental staple of comic book writing.
Also, we are supposed to be able to reimagine our myths periodically.
You should. Bruce Wayne doesn't always have to be a white dude.
Exactly. And kudos to the CW for when they had to recast Kate Kane, who we already thought was revolutionary and perfect.
Yeah.
They went just like a step farther and
they
cast
doubled down.
A black lesbian. Or
Totally.
is she bi?
I think she's a lesbian.
Either way.
She's part of the LGBTQ
community.
plus community.
And she is a woman of color.
Yes.
Which is...
And, like, I know
Chef's
the CW, like, has that as their fucking moniker, is, like, inclusivity for everyone. But, like, fuck, man, that's what comic books, like, that's what these worlds are about. And it's not a bad thing. These shows and these comic book characters are all about justice and the right thing. And, like, to have it so beautifully told, it makes my heart so warm. Like, I wish more people enjoyed these shows the way we do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I am glad that the people making these shows don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's super sad that Supergirl is going to be ending after this next season. But, I mean, I get it. Like, Arrow didn't need 8 seasons.
It sure did
As
not.
much as I love Arrow and Oliver Queen and Stephen Amell's portrayal of the character.
All agreed.
But, like, it makes sense to end Supergirl. It's interesting that they're making Superman and Lois. It's going to be...
Yeah. You want to end the shows while they're still good.
Yeah.
Which didn't happen for Arrow. My dearest hope for The Flash is that we get a really good finale and then it ends.
Yeah.
But I don't want them to keep treading water because that show is so good.
And has remained good.
Like, consistently. Every season is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Good?
I think that's a good place to stop.
All right. I think we should call this episode Chef's Kiss.
Chef's Kiss?
Yes, because I've said it like 4 times.
Yeah, you have. All right. So we're going to end it here. Thank you for listening to our podcast. I'm your host, Matthew, the Dr. Danko.
It's called Why Did Not You Warn Me? I remembered. I'm your co-host.
I mean, I didn't forget.
I forgot.
Oh, okay.
It's been an hour and a half or something.
Yeah. All right.
I'm Hillary Crumb.
My co-host. I know. Thanks for listening. Peace out. Once the show ends, please don't shed those tears. We'll come back again, so have no fear. Oh, we told you that it just might end up this way. What's the show called again? You cannot be saying, why didn't you warn me? Why didn't you warn me?